Good afternoon, sir. We are Group 47, and today we will be presenting for assignment 2. Starting off for task 1, our goal was to migrate an existing application to a cloud environment using Amazon Web Services, AWS. To achieve this, we leverage two key AWS services, which are Amazon EC2 for scalable virtual servers and Amazon RDS for managing relational databases. These services provide scalability, flexibility, and reliability, which are essential for our clients' requirements. Specifically, RDS offers automated maintenance, high availability, and supports multiple databases engines like MySQL, PostgreSQL, and Oracle. To ensure a secure, scalable infrastructure, we started by creating a virtual private cloud VPC. Within a VPC, we configured one public subnet for web servers and one private subnet for the database servers. We also implemented security groups to control access. The Agent Hub Web Security Group allows HTTP access from any IP address, making the application accessible to others. The Agent Hub DB Security Group restricts database access to only web servers within the VPC, ensuring enhanced security. Additionally, we created extra subnets in a second availability zone to ensure high availability and fault tolerance. For the database, we configured an RDS instance with 20 GB of general purpose SSD storage, which provides a balance between performance and cost efficiency. We also created a DB subnet group spanning multiple availability zones to enhance availability and resilience. To validate the setup, we tested the connection to the RDS instance using MySQL Workbench and the SQL Tools extension in VS Code. This will ensure that the database was accessible and functioning correctly. Moving on to task 2, we designed an entity relationship diagram ERD to represent the relationships between the entities in our application. The relationship between users and agents is one-to-many. The relationships between agents and customers is many-to-many. The relationship between customer and purchase information is one-to-many. And finally, the relationship between purchase information and products is also one-to-many. This ERD helps us understand how data flows within the application and ensures that our database design aligns with the business requirements. Now, let's walk through step-by-step implementation of task 2. First, we access the AWS Academy and the Sandbox environment to create resources like RDS database and EC2 instances. Next, we configured AWS RDS service by creating a new RDS instance using MySQL as a database engine. We then set up MySQL Workbench on our local machine and created a new connection to the RDS instance using the endpoint, username, and password. After that, we updated the application code to include the JDBC driver for MySQL. Next, we set up VS Code and configured a new connection to the RDS instance for testing purposes. Lastly, we verified and tested the application. The next two slides show step-by-step implementation in details, but I will only choose first two steps and the last two steps that is used in this task 2. For step 1, to access AWS Academy and Sandbox environment, we need to log into AWS Academy and access the Sandbox environment provided. Ensure that I have the necessary permissions to create resources like RDS database and EC2 instances. Next, for step 2, to configure AWS RDS, I need to navigate to AWS RDS service, create a new RDS instance using MySQL as the database engine, configure the instance with appropriate settings such as instance type, storage, and security groups, note down the endpoint value once the RDS instance is created. For step 5, to set up VS Code with SQL Tools extension, install the SQL Tools extension in VSC, configure a new connection to your RDS instance in SQL Tools server, use the port defined in RDS security group. Default is 3306 for MySQL. Driver, select MySQL. Username used is set to my root or the username that I configured. Password is enabled to the Ask on Connection option or provide the password directly. Step 6 is verify and testing. Firstly, we receive the configurations and test the connection from SQL Tools to ensure it connects successfully to my RDS instance. Secondly, test the application locally to ensure it can connect to the RDS database using the updated JDBC connection settings. I will pass the next part to my friend. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anik Fahmi. So thank you, Farah Nabila, for the present. So I will continue this part. So for the security measure on AWS, In our project, security was a top priority, so we implement several security measures to ensure data protection and network security. So the first one is a virtual private cloud VPC to create a secure and isolated environment, preventing unauthorized access. Next, we segment our network into public and private subnets to safeguard sensitive data. The database remain in the private subnet while the web server are in the public subnet. The third one is an internet gateway was implemented to allow control external communication, ensuring the application is accessible worldwide. Next one is a security group was set up to regulate traffic, which is an agent hub security group, allow HTTP access to the web servers, and agent hub DB security group restrict database access to only trust web servers within the VPC. Okay, next, so the VPC configuration. To establish a well-structured cloud infrastructure, we configured a virtual private cloud VPC. So the VPC was named Agent Hub VPC with a CIDR block of 10.0.0.0/16. One availability zone was selected with a public subnet for web servers and one a private subnet, which is 10.0.2.0/16 for the database. So for the net gateway was enabled to allow secure internet access for resources in private subnets, and DNS resolution and hostname were also enabled for easy resource identification. So next is subnet configuration. So to improve network reliability, we expand our VPC by adding more subnets and updating the route tables. 2 additional subnets were introduced, which is a public subnet to distribute traffic, a private subnet to backend security. So for the route table was updated to direct traffic efficiently for this public subnet through the public route table, and the private subnet use the private route table. Okay, next, so for security groups, to regulate traffic and enhance security, we configure security groups for different components of our infrastructure. So the first one is a web security group, and it allows HTTP access from anywhere for web servers. The second one is a database security group, allows MySQL or Aurora access, but only from a web security group, and that ensuring that only the web server can communicate with the database. And then RDS configuration, our database setup on performance, scalability and security. So we create an RDS database subnet group named agent hub /db/subnet/group spanning multiple availability zones to ensure resilience. So the public subnets were allocated to enhance accessibility and redundancy. Okay, next is a database creation. For database setup, we deploy MySQL as our preferred engine. So the RDS instance details, which is a database version, we use a MySQL 8.0.35, which is a community edition. And then for the instance name, we use agent hub /db/01. Credential is for the username, it uses a root, and the password is secure. So instance type db.t3.micro. Next, for the RDS connectivity and logs, to ensure seamless database operation, we configure access permission and logging mechanism. So security group, we can get both web and database security group were assigned to RDS instance. So for the public access, we enable with the strict security control. For the log export, we can get audit logs, error logs, general logs and slow query logs for the performance tuning. For next one is application testing. So to validate our database configuration, we perform multiple test cases. So why we do a test? Because the testing was conducted using MySQL Workbench and SQL tools and VS Code to ensure smooth database integration. So that include with inserting a new entry like add product name before breakfast collection, deleting outdated entries, which is remove an item with a product code prod5, adding another product, which is we insert paper vase into the database. So the verification was done by querying AWS RDS to confirm that change was successfully applied. I think that's all. For our key achievement for this group is we secure and scalable cloud infrastructure, reliable database and management of RDS, and successful connectivity application testing. So this concludes for our presentation. Thank you for your time. That's all from group 47. Thank you.